Good morning. It's wonderful to have all of you here and also to see some wonderful familiar faces. I would first like to thank the Newark Tech Center for hosting us, for having us here to do all these wonderful things that we are going to try to do today. And I would also encourage some of you to come and participate in some of the classes that they are having here. They have a wonderful staff, and matter of fact, I'm taking one of the classes. Just the other day I came to do the logistics for this event, and then Daisy, the staff member, she convinced me to take a class, a coding class. So it's all free for Newark residents. Okay, so if you can, please come. Okay, so without any detours, my name is Winifred Victor Hines, and I am the co-chair of the Newark Environmental Commission. Cynthia Mayon is the other co-chair, and we have 7 other commissioners. And some of our accomplishments are working with food and water issues, air quality, the same topics that you guys will be working on today. And one of the accomplishments I would say that we're most proud of was last year, July 2016, okay, we managed to get the Municipal City Council to pass the Environmental Justice Cumulative Impacts Ordinance. Yay, yes. Now, thank you. Now the ordinance is the only one of its kind in the nation. Not the state of New Jersey, not the tri-state area, but in the nation. So basically, some of you may be thinking, okay, what is an environmental justice cumulative impact ordinance? So if a developer comes into Newark, because we are bombarded by a lot of industries that pollute. We have the second largest incinerator in the East Coast and also the second busiest port in the nation. So all these combine and create a lot more pollutants, okay? They emit hazardous waste, CO2 emissions that pollute us. So in Newark, you cannot walk within 1,000 feet without running into some type of pollutant. Our soils are polluted, the water's polluted, our air. So this is where you come in because we need you, soldiers, okay, to fight for us. The Environmental Commission, all the other organizations over here as well. We have 2 former environmental commissions in the room, Kim Gaddy and also Brenda Toyloy. So we have been at this for a while. Yes. Okay, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Cumulative Impact Ordinance was originally drafted by the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance, okay, and also later on amended by different organizations, such as members of New Jersey Clean Water Action, Ironbound Community Corporation, Weequahic Park Association, various staff members, city staff members, Attorney Environmental Law Center, etc. Now, our current campaign is the Idle-Free Newark campaign. And basically, you can find this information in the back and then also online. But I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's to get you to turn off your engines. So if you're going to drop someone off or pick someone off for 10 seconds or more, okay, you have to turn off your engines because it's emitting CO2 emissions in the air, thus contributing to all the pollutions that we are already bombarded with, okay? So, having you here today to fully engage and provide your comments serves as a reminder of how important our work and your participation is. So I encourage you to please participate as fully as you can because we do want to hear from you. Okay, so this is the reason why we're here, to solicit input from you, to get your comments, to know what, if what we are doing is right, okay? And so without any further ado, I will introduce Natalie Fillion, the Director of the Office of Sustainability. Did I say it right? Or Office of Sustainability Office. She's been doing a wonderful job here, and she's had these summer series all throughout the city, and there's one more coming up also in the Central Ward, right? So she's going to explain everything to you and give you the steps as to how the rest of the day is going to progress. Okay? Thank you.
As Winnie said, my name is Natalie Fillion, and I serve as the City of Newark Chief Sustainability Officer. And in that role, I'm tasked with two things. One is to work interdepartmentally, which if any of you have been, honestly, it's a problem that's everywhere, but particularly in city government, we tend to operate in silos. We operate within our own subject matter expertise and within the one thing that we're working on. And it's very difficult to cut through those boundaries of different departments and different divisions. And part of my role is to find ways for collaboration on these issues, which are very much cross-disciplinary in nature. The other part of my job is to essentially be an interface with community groups. Newark as a city is, and Winnie alluded to this in the comments about the environmental justice and cumulative impacts ordinance, we have a long history of being at the forefront of advocacy and grassroots mobilism for justice when it comes to environmental pollutants. And so it's a role that I'm trying to do a good job on. I'm really excited that you guys are all here because it's part of what I'm hoping is that the work that we're doing as a city and with the resources of the city are really fed from the needs in the community. And so this series of events is, let me just show a little flyer. So we're doing 5 of these total, 1 in each ward, and this is the 4th in that series. And the purpose of it is to update a sustainability action plan that was drafted with the input of community leaders, in particular the first environmental commission that was created in 2009, is that correct? And Kim was one of the chairs, or the chair of that commission overseeing the update to this plan. This was published in 2013. There was public input that went into it, but it's almost 5 years ago now. And so it's time to take stock, be accountable to the things that we did, report out on the things we did, the things that we didn't get as far as we thought we would be, as we hoped to be by 2018 when the 5-year stamp comes along. And what I'm trying to do is that, basically collect that information from folks. And so each of the events was organized with a small committee of folks that are environmental stakeholders that care about these issues. And so you'll see that this one's got sort of its own unique flavor, and it's focused on health issues, on recognizing the interface between the environments that we live in and what that means for our health, for our children's health, for the health of our homes, etc. And so before the mayor gets here, I wanted to just give a little bit of an overview of how the day is going to go. The mayor will give some remarks when he's able to join us this morning. And then he'll be with us also to the end to make sure that we have an ability for each of the groups to sort of share a little bit about the conversations that emerged at the tables and to ask questions of him. And I've been really struck by the quality of the questions, and I'm looking forward to South Ward continuing that trend. So the 4 topic areas that we're going to discuss are food, water, air quality, and then we've left a station that's other. So basically the idea is that we can't capture everything, and so we want to make sure to, in those 3 topics, and so we want to make sure to have a space for conversations to emerge on things that are related to the environment, etc. Last plan had 6 chapters, and those chapters are summarized in the posters that are set up behind the room. You also, when you arrived, everyone should have gotten a packet that included 3 things. The first is, if you didn't, then we can come to the registration table so you can get more, or get a copy. The first is an overview of the event, and then the 2-page executive summary of the 2013 Sustainability Action Plan. You can review these at your leisure, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had copies of that. The next thing you received is sort of to spur conversation. It's a taste of the kinds of issues that we face throughout Newark and in the South Ward in particular, which is the proximity between polluting industries and vulnerable populations and other community assets that we all depend on. And so, this is something that you can use as a reference. We're in the breakouts, but it was nice to have everyone have a copy of this. This was developed by Clean Water Action. And then last but not least, I had a group of students working with me from the PSE&G Institute for Sustainability Studies this summer, and they developed a digest, which is these posters. So the posters across the back, but you also have a handout version of the posters, again, to read at your leisure or just to have for reference. I've asked everyone to sign in because one thing that came out of these meetings, but in particular in the South Ward, the Planning Committee, Winnie and Kim, really named that we have an issue with follow-through, that the city asks for people's input, but then doesn't give more information back about what that input turned into. And so the reason for the sign up is so that we can continue the conversation. And I already had some conversations with folks, a number of folks in the room, about ongoing engagement on sustainability related matters, and I really want to continue that. In fact, the very first grant that I won, working in partnership with some partners, including the Clean Water Action and Ironbound Community Corporation and EJA, Environmental Justice Alliance, was on impact volunteering. There's an organization called Cities of Service, and through that we got $25,000, which we're going to use for planting trees, for installing rain barrels in people's homes, and for painting cool roofs, which is a white sealant that goes on a roof to make the energy load and the heat of that building less unbearable, because there are plenty of older homes where it gets really, really hot in the summers. And that, in addition, we actually got 2 AmeriCorps Vista volunteers for a full year. So these are folks paid by the grantor, and Corinna Assing, who's waving her hand in the back, is one of those folks. And so we're really excited to have that work going forward. So with no further ado, what I'm going to do is hand it over to the folks that are going to be leading the breakout so that they can explain a little bit more about each of the topic areas that we're going to be focused on. And then I'll come back around and explain the flow for the morning. Sound good? So if we can get Kim to start. Just hold it low. I kind of read it just height.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Kim Gaddy. I am the Environmental Justice Organizer for Clean Water Action and South Ward resident. As was stated, one of the areas that I will be focusing on is air, the air quality in the city of Newark. Unfortunately, in most urban cities across this state, our children are impacted by the many air conditions and they suffer from asthma. So, for example, in the city of Newark, 1 in 4 children have asthma versus 1 in 10 from the suburban communities like Mount Clair or Livingston. And it is only because in our communities, we live so close to the industry. Part of our economic vibrancy in this city and state, unfortunately, is the port that we have. But at that port, 7,500 trucks come through there in the course of a day. And out of the 7,500, at a low number, from 7,500 to 10,000, 2,500 to 3,500 of those trucks stay on our local roads. And so they are emitting diesel pollution, which is a known carcinogen. That's a cancer-causing carcinogen. And then, as was stated, we live by, if you saw the actual map that had the industry on Freeland Heights and Avenue, there are more than 30 to 50 different polluting facilities, as well as a Superfund site, the White Chemical Corporation. And unfortunately, right across from this location is our Weequahic Park. So when our children are at the park and they're recreating, unfortunately, they are being exposed to a lot of the air pollution that is not only coming from the trucks in the community, but also which is coming from these industries. And so in order for us to have a vibrant city where our children and all of our residents can have a better quality of life, we have to ensure that our air quality is stable. And so that is truly important. You can't educate children who are sick, right? Our senior citizens who live along Dayton Street, right? Otto Kretschmer, all those senior citizen facilities that are right there. We have thousands of senior citizens. When they come out on their balcony, as soon as they take a breath and they breathe, they're breathing in serious toxins. And so the air section will kind of focus on what is happening and what we can do to change this. Because this is our community, right? We live here, and the only way we're going to change the circumstances that exist in our neighborhood is by us stepping up and lending our voice to the conversation. And so that's why I'm so thankful to each and every one of you for coming out this morning and to ensure that your voice is being heard in the conversation, and that the Sustainability Action Plan that was put together is not going to be something that sits on the shelf. It is a living document that we all must embrace and we all must begin to focus on. And so today, we are going to be focusing on air, water, and food, because those three areas are crucial to our everyday life. So I do want to thank you, and I'm looking forward to a real productive conversation and each and every one of you becoming a part of our South Ward Environmental Group. Thank you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Terrence Bankston. Oh, Brenda Toyloy.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing this morning? Okay, let me start off by saying this. Water is very important. We're all made of water. We're 70% water. Before the earth was, it was water. And before you came into this world, you had to break through your mother's water bag. So we're all encased in water. And so I'm going to start with lead, because Newark just got the information last year regarding lead being in the water. And the reality is, it's much more than lead in the water. So what we want to talk about is how that lead has affected our children already, and what we can do about making sure that that lead does not continue to effectuate the children in our schools and in our homes. Lead is very serious. It causes a problem. Most of you already know the effects of lead. But let's talk about some of the other things that we have found in our water, and an overabundance of it, specifically trihalophanes. Trihalophanes is the cancer-causing, is a offshoot of chlorine being in the water. And when that chlorine actually mixes in with the naturally occurring microorganisms in the water, it causes all kinds of cancers, from rectal cancer to prostate cancer. And then we have other things that are in the water. We have cysts that are in the water. And cysts, unlike what our water quality report says, it is resistant to chlorine. And so this is a problem also with populations that are very young, children under 5, the body hasn't developed, the immune system hasn't developed. People 55 years or over, their immune system begins to wane. People that have problems, that are on chemotherapy or have had transplants, these are problems, okay? And you have to understand, when the water is treated, it is treated and tested at the water treatment plant, which is hundreds of miles away from here. It is not treated in the home. We have an infrastructure that is eroding away. We have building pipes that are eroding away, and in all of that, the water traveling, there are problems with our water. We also have what we call Frank Lautenberg's 21st Century Chemical Act. That was put forward because of the Toxic Substance Control Act back in 1976 that basically grandfathered 62,000 chemicals, and no testing was done by the EPA. These are very serious points that we must take into effect in regards to our water. Everybody needs water. You need water to drink. You need water to bathe in. You need water to clean your house. Water is a necessary resource that has been given to us by our Almighty Creator. It's available for everyone. Our problem is we humans have created so many different things to make life more convenient that we've negated the fact that the problems, everything that is created with water, and the runoff is a problem. So Terrence is probably going to go into some other problems with the water coming into our combined sewer system. that overflows with lots and lots of toxins. And so my quest for all of you is to stop at the table, pay attention to the water. You're 70% water. Whether you like it, you don't like it, we're all 70% water. We are bound together by life resources. Life resources of water, air, seed, and soil. Today, it is all contaminated. And so we have to pay attention to these things because our lives are dependent on it. Okay, so I'm Brenda Toiler. I run a company called Tap Water Doctor LLC. And Terrence, are you coming up? Who's coming? Carla Green. Come on, Carla. You're welcome.
Morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here to speak to you all. I see a group of conscious people, conscious about their environment, conscious about their water, conscious about food, and conscious about the planet and all the issues that we face now and in the years to come. My topic is food security, and the need for food security in Newark. It's very important that we as conscious people support our local grower. We have local growers in Newark, and I don't know how much you know about where these farms are and what we do. There's a small group of us and we're growing. So with that being said, Newark has a high rate of obesity, 1. 2, a high rate of drug addiction, and a high rate of more chronic illness, diabetes, cancer, due to pollution, contaminated water that we don't even realize is coming into our home. All of these things affect us on many different levels. So it's important that we have better access to fresh food, locally produced, and that you can get it affordably. You pay excess in the supermarket for food that's being transported from long distances, sometimes from abroad. We can grow food here in Newark that's local so that you can afford to buy these fresh foods. Myself, I'm a diabetic, so I'm on a schedule and I have to eat a certain way. I can no longer eat a whole lot of carbs that turn into sugar, that depress my body and my brain into trying to process that food into energy. It doesn't work so well for me. So I eat mostly a plant-based diet, and a lot of us don't realize how satisfying fresh food can be to our life. We look for carbs, we look for rice, we look for potatoes, because we're looking for that satisfaction that we don't get in the supermarket. We don't. It doesn't taste good, it's not fresh. You take it home, you put it in the fridge, it spoils. Not so much when you get farm fresh food. You can put something away for a long period of time. There are cabbages that can be stored, carrots, many greens, even when they lose their fullness, you put it in water and it comes back to life. So if we had clean water, can you imagine how much better we would function? But food is something that we really need to focus on, because if we don't have farms, we don't eat. And if you've been listening to the news lately with the immigration situation that it is right now, there are farmers in California who are suffering. Their food is rotting in the field because they don't have enough people to pick. So that being said, if you have your food growing locally here in Newark, we can do a better job of sustaining ourselves. It's a sustainable way to live. Most people had backyard gardens when we were younger. Our grandmothers, they fed us from the yard. So it's important that you support your local food grower as much as possible. Go to the farmer's market, check it out, and you'll see how well you can shop and how tasty the food can be.
We started a little late this morning, and so there wasn't really much time for report outside. But we're gonna be able to, if folks have questions and they wanna, in a short period of time, just share where that's coming from, if it was something that came up in the table conversation. I have here a man that needs no introduction, and a lot of you know him already. We're on his home turf. But I'm really, really proud and excited to work under his leadership in this. This has been something where I actually did some follow-up with folks that are in my kind of position in different cities across the country. And the level of engagement that Mayor Baraka has had on this issue of sustainability is far beyond what you would expect for a city our size. And it's actually a strong testament to his leadership and his commitment to this issue, and I really appreciate that. So with no further ado, is there anyone that has a question? I can come over and... Okay, Karina. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. It's your show. I'm good. So I just want to thank first Natalie and all the work that she's been doing, right? She's been doing an excellent job for us, the Office of Sustainability. There was a sustainability action plan that was done years ago with our sustainability office, not really a director to move those things forward. We brought on Natalie. She's been doing an outstanding job trying to marshal all the forces in the city to get behind the Sustainability Action Plan. And some of the things that she began to point out immediately to us is that there are a lot of things on that plan that are just not reachable or not attainable, right? So there's not SMART goals in the sense that we need to figure out some immediate things, some low-hanging fruit that we can get accomplished immediately, and I agree with that. I think there are some things that we need victories, we need wins. We are so used to being on a defensive that we have not, been on an offensive, so we have not been able to create the things that we need to see. And that's important, I think is incredibly important, and I like the idea of her trying to go around and re-engage the community and making sure that we create steps that are sustainable, measurable, kind of goals in the city, and we're going to do that, and that's what this is about. We've been to almost every ward, South Ward here now, and I wish it was more of us here, but we'll do it again and get more folks out. It's always the quality, sometimes not the quantity, so I appreciate everybody who's come out and engaged in these issues. These are very important, and I just want to let you know, the Office of Sustainability, some people have an idea of what they think that is. Sustainability to us is many things, right? Sustainability is not just green space, it's not just storm water, it's not just the sewer system. Sustainability is all of the things that involve our quality of life, everything that allows us to live a quality of life that we could sustain over a period of time, and not just in a parochial way, because sometimes we engage in these issues based on how they affect us individually, as opposed to how they affect the city collectively, and that's important. So when we're planning, we can't just plan in a vacuum, or how it's just going to affect me over here. Though that's important, we have to always plug it into how this is affecting the overall picture in the city, and that's what we're trying to do, so that everybody is clear on it. So a few things that we've been doing in terms of low-hanging fruit. We have, at this point, last week we were at 25, now we're like 30-something illegal dumpers that we have arrested and confiscated their stuff on a task force. And a lot of that is with help of the community. People are telling on folks. And, we have a task force that's out there at the time when people, we believe they're dumping early in the morning, late at night. And so we're catching people. Unfortunately, some of the people live here with us, and then there's a nice number of them who are just contractors or people who are building and do not want to pay the disposal fee to get rid of their construction material, so they store it on the street, knowing you're going to call and harass us and complain, and we're going to come pick it up, and then we're going to pay for it. Because every time we dump illegal dumping, we pay. The city pays the tipping fees, we pay it. In order to get taken away, in order to cart it away, we have to pay. So it costs us money when they illegally dump. So it's important for us to catch them, not just call the city after they do it, right? So, and that's what we've been trying to do that. We've been working on this tree canopy and trying to make sure that we are planting trees, or making sure that, obviously when trees are taken, that they're replaced. We're trying to, in terms of economic development, focus on creating green spaces in the corridors and neighborhoods and communities when we do all of the development that's happening, and it's happening very rapidly, by the way, and all over the city, not just downtown. It's happening very, very rapidly. Unfortunately, development takes about 18 months, so you'll go to sleep and wake up, and all over your neighborhood there'll be stuff going up because there are a lot of zoning board applications, a lot of planning board applications, a lot of stuff in the hopper for development. We're just trying to ensure that there's some green space, that we deal with these surfaces, these blacktops, that we do it in a way where the infrastructure is also sustainable for us at the same time. And we want to encourage urban gardens, and we talked about at one of the meetings how we pull all of those gardens together, because there's dozens of them across the city who don't talk to each other, who don't know each other. Some people get more help from the city than others. And so we want to even that out and have some equity and have a plan about how do we help urban gardens expand and actually use them, you know, with stores and community and food and all of those things. So it's an enormous task, but I think Natalie has been doing an outstanding job. And we have to not just look at it from a high-level perspective. You have to start looking at it from a day-to-day perspective and focus on the process and not just the outcomes, right? Process meaning each day we get something accomplished, and when we look up, we have a sustainable environment, right? Each day we get something different accomplished. Each year we get something different accomplished, and we closer and closer to our goal, right? But I'll entertain any questions that people have, so. I mean, there's no mic, so you can yell. You got the mic? I'm sorry, you can call. Go ahead. It's hard for me to hear you.
My name is Karina Sherry, and I just want to really thank you for a really good job.
Thank you.
I think that's why you're doing some work. I think the reason some people are not showing up today is because I think there should be really a community board where people can post this stuff. We just haven't stumbled on this in the past. So I think the information is not getting disseminated. It's not reaching. And so I think that is really important. But I also, I came because I heard about the vote about gentrification and the new real, I don't know.
Inclusionary zoning?
Yes.
Right.
And, I want to make sure
We could take this one down and
I
we can
want
make it
to
a hundred
know
people.
that you can really
Oh no, I'll go through all of it. No, I just told you to take your on camera mics and turn it off. Oh, so we can get it.
Right.
Yeah, do that. Oh, okay.
not identify because very important for all the laws of life, which is laws.
I absolutely agree.
If we need the bodies to show up on, City Hall steps on the day of the vote, whatever it takes, I think this is very important.
I agree. So we do have, and we've always struggled with trying to disseminate the information in a way that reaches the most people. We do have the MyNewark app and the neighbor next door that we blast out, but unfortunately a lot of people have not signed up. There's a couple of thousand people, but there's 300,000 people in the city. And so we blast it out on MyNewark app. So if you have the app, when it blasts out, it sends an alert to your phone of the events and the programs that we're having. The neighbor next door, it organizes neighborhoods. You get on there, you talk to your neighbors, and you put the information out that way. What was suggested to us in the North Ward was that we begin to start thinking about the kind of area boards or assemblies of block associations, bringing them together into larger kind of groups to help us disseminate information better that way. I agree with that. I've already talked to some of the folks in my office about how to begin to organize that. You know, in Jackson, Mississippi, the old mayor, before he passed, had something called People's Assemblies. And I think that that's something that we should kind of visit in the city, figure out how to make that work in a real way that's just not about us having access to voters, but having people in the community opportunity to talk to each other about the things that are going on. Because there are a bunch of excellent block associations that may get information and some that don't. And so if we had a larger kind of group where people feed into, like the South Ward has even the precinct organization, the police precinct. Other wards don't have that. right? So that kind of uneven organizing allows for the problems that we have where information seeps through the cracks. So we have to figure out how to do better. Absolutely. We have an office of community liaisons. We have that as one in every ward. The council people also have aides. The problem is all of us work in our separate little silos, and we have to figure out how to strengthen that in a way that it makes sense. Because right now it's kind of top-down thing, and there's no structure where we can push information up and out. And I don't think it's difficult to do. We just have to figure out a kind of structure and a system that is good. And yes. But I also want to talk about the inclusionary zoning ordinance. Nothing is a panacea, right? So nothing is going to end all of the problems that we have because we have a variety of them, right? But we have to be able to provide housing for folks, and we can't wait. And that's what sustainability is, right? That's what sustainability is. So Jersey City has it, Hoboken, Manhattan, people are doing it, but they've done it too late. So Jersey City is fighting to do the same thing, but they already so densely populated and they already have the high rises that it makes no sense really because they're not benefiting from it. Hoboken the same way. They passed the law after development took place. Manhattan, Brooklyn is the most expensive county, Kings County in the nation, right? So there's the inclusionary zoning is there, but it's like it makes no sense now because everything is $1 million. It's impossible almost to make it have a serious impact. Newark is at a place, and I'm happy because we couldn't have had this discussion 5 years ago, right? So I'm happy that the development is coming in the city so quickly that we can say inclusionary zoning. And there's really two pieces to that. One is trying to get people into housing that's being developed downtown. But the real piece for us, and that's important because we want people to be able to go down there if they can fit in the criteria. But the real part of it is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And that's not being debated. So when developers say, I'm going to build 300 units of market rate housing, right, in a densely populated area and put it there, and they beat you up and make you believe that the financing doesn't make sense, right? And you go back and forth with them, and they might be right, and most of the time they're wrong, but we give them an option to put money into Affordable Housing Trust Fund that allows us to do gap financing in areas like South Ward, Clinton Hill, West Ward, infill housing, where people are developing, that the city can provide financing to help those projects actually work. We can build other projects around the city where it's also affordable at the same time. There's also a piece in there that tells them they can identify 4 or 5 homes that are abandoned and rebuild those homes, right, at cost and sell it to folks in the city at cost, right? So if they take a home and it costs them $150,000, $130,000 to build that home, they have to sell it at that cost to folks in the city. That doesn't hurt them, right? It doesn't hurt them because it's actually they're actually getting their money back. It's a zero-sum game here, right? They put the money in, they get the money back because somebody affords to buy that home. And then we help them in the city with our homesteading and our home buying programs to get those things. So there's a bunch of options that we have, and we have to put as many tools on the table as we can. So that's just one, and we can't use that as the answer. There's many, many more that we have to put in place.
green strategies, like how much is the city requiring for them to input an aspect or aspects of green within their bills?
So, yeah, so some people think that happens at the zoning board. It doesn't, right? So it happens before that process even takes place. But we do have things at the zoning board, like a cumulative impact ordinance. We have a zoning ordinance that forces them to do specific things in order to even get those the zoning or the variances that they need. Cumulative impact is telling them that we measure the impact that your development is going to have on the environment, and you have to mitigate those issues before you begin to develop. And then as we negotiate with contractors and developers based on where the property is being developed, we definitely put things in the contractual language that suggests that they have to do a specific number of things, whether it's something simple as you need a security guard, something simple as you need green space, you need tree canopy, you need a roof thing. So there are things that we put in place through our planning office and EEHD.
Okay, so that question stems from the fact that if we are now tasked to build trees and watch the water, how we use it, and put it in. So when they are taking, or should I say, when they plant a tree, because now they're developing their project is completed.
Right.
Are they then required to put like permits around the tree or?
Well, that's up to us. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So, and that varies. So there's no boilerplate. So that varies from negotiation to negotiation, right? Depending on what we think the impact is going to be in the area where you're building, what we think is necessary, based on our master plan that was done years ago, and what the planners and stuff are saying about that area. So, obviously in areas deep in the community here, we asking for more green space, and we're building more green space. Like on Clinton Avenue, there was the whole discussion downtown about what to do with the area next to the precinct. We decided to make it an amphitheater. We're not finished. Greater Newark Conservancy is going to finish putting benches and trees and more stuff out there, outside art space. So. Sure. Mulching, yeah.
The senior planner in the Office of Planning, Zoning, and Sustainability, which is under the Economic and Housing Development, is currently in the process of writing up sort of guidelines for best practice, so that at the point at which developers are going to be submitting applications, their city-issued materials that share best practice, because it is a challenge that we have to address. So there's a process right now in place for having those materials available early on in the conversation so that it impacts the negotiations and so on. I'm just going to ask that folks spend a little bit less time on each question so that more folks can have an opportunity to do questions. So Brenda?
I have a question in regards to water, and my question is not going to lead to long-term answers. My question is going to lead to short-term answers. How do we deal with situations when we have contamination of the water? Oftentimes we have an overabundance of chlorine in the water, and that overabundance causes dry health effects. And so often we've gone over the maximum contaminant level for dry health effects, and as you
Plastics.
Plastic because the plastic is made with petrochemical and electrochemical plant. So my idea is to work with the city to establish water stations. We got 5 different recreation centers. We got churches throughout, okay, where people can actually come and bring their containers and get water that will be filtered properly off the trial things. Set up emergency stations for clean water. I mean, I think we would be the first city to actually implement something like that and not without people on bottom of the boat.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
We have a high rate of obesity, so it's evident. You know, a lot of obesity, a lot of cancer, a lot of diabetes in this
Right.
particular town. And if you don't get a hold of it, you have also here a very high rate of people that have HIV, senior citizens, children, you have your preschools, they're not making sure the water is filtered properly in schools, as you know, have a problem. We have problems. And so now how are we going to deal with it in an emergency situation such as Sandy? I cannot say that Sandy's not going to happen again because look what just happened over the last couple of days. Torrential rains, shut down the St. Valley Sewage Commission. You got all this, contaminated waters, the combined sewer system overflowing into the receiving waters untreated. And then when that happens, you have the need for more pouring in of the chemicals to treat the water. So what are we going to do about that? I'm looking at short-term answers. You got to have the
You gave the answer and the question. You're giving a speech, so you.
So, I'm talking about what we do as far as setting up emergency stations for people.
That's not a bad idea, and we can look into that. I think part of the issue is it's 2 pieces. The CSO, that combined sewer overflow is going to take us hundreds of millions of dollars to fix in the city. So we have to, and we have a mandate by the EPA and the state to do that. It's just going to take us a period of time to get it done. The second piece of it is our reservoirs are wide open. So we have been talking about a plan to cover those reservoirs, and we have to deal with other municipalities to get that done, and their zoning boards and all these other kind of things, because our water reservoirs are not in Newark, right? Obviously, there's a few. There's one that we talked about that we're going to have to pay $70 million to put this kind of ultraviolet thing in, or we have to struggle with the municipality to let them allow us to build tanks, and they don't want us to build tanks because they think it's ugly. But it'll save us money, it'll make our water better. But so we still, all that stuff you're saying is viable, and we're still struggling around kind of complex issues to get it right. And water stations are a good idea. We should sit and talk about it. Yeah, yeah.
So we're going to take a look at that list and thank Mary for a really great job with Southport. She worked till 11 o'clock last night, and just want to give a shout out for the work that you're doing for sure. Homeowners, property values going down to 300,000, median property value here is now $150,000, $160,000. Can't afford that. We got to sustain the value of our property. A lot of things are impacting that, right? So we got to look at what homeowners and taxpayers, what it takes to sustain our property value in our neighborhood.
More development.
Absolutely. So one of the areas of the other list is economic development. And Mayor, we like to say regarding the economic ability that we have at Newark International Airport. We have 40 people that come into our port with industry workers.
Right.
We are not harnessing that economic power. And we look at infrastructure that allows us to harness that economic capability. So I'd like to say engage with the office in conversation of economic sustainability and looking at the resources that we have. Smaller issue, sidewalks lifting up because trees are growing in our neighborhood, lifting up sidewalks. We can't fix the sidewalks because the trees are growing, and then
if it's unsafe, the city will deal with it, because that trumps that. But you can't cut down a tree if it's alive. So that is city policy, right? And if it's a safety issue and a sidewalk, then we will come out and address it, you know. But that is a fact. Okay. And these are like fully grown trees, probably. Yeah. All right. Okay. I'll bring that. But the economic development thing is happening. So, and we are definitely engaged with the poor. So to say that that's not happening is just totally incorrect. No, I'm not saying it's right. Oh yeah, you could be involved in that. Absolutely. Absolutely, you should be involved in that. Absolutely. Right, they replaced everybody. Yeah, they replaced everybody. Well, we are, I don't know what's wrong with this mic. Well, I don't need it. First of all, like the port, we are in litigation with the port right now. So our discussion back and forth with them is based on very specific things. We're not going to say anything publicly about our position and so forth and so on, because we can't. And we have done a audit. Our audit is coming to a close. There's some very specific issues that we have. Some very specific issues that we have with, and I'm gonna be careful here, Port Street. Some very specific issues that we have with the acreage of land. And we're also engaging them about their master plan and Doremus Avenue. So we have been talking to them back and forth. The talks broke down because of the transition of leadership. We're waiting for that to take place, and we're gonna re-engage them. But we're not having any public discussions with those guys. Stuff that they can use later on based on stuff that we've said publicly, right? So we've had the last large meeting we had in City Hall discussing Port Street, which is the largest street that goes in and out of, the port, discussing all of the other things that we talked about, basically them, well, not doing what they're supposed to do, as the lease says. And, you know, I wish I could go into deeper detail about what we think that is, but, you know, I don't know where this will wind up, and I don't want to say things before it gets anywhere and is misconstrued to be something else. But we are definitely in full engagement with them, and with the ILA, by the way. The ILA, the Water Commission, as well, about employment and jobs at the port. Which is why we haven't been down there in our protest again. Because we have engaged the ILA, and they have agreed to some things, some stipulations that is going to take our state legislatures and everybody else to get involved. But I think we're getting close, and hopefully with the new leadership that comes there, and so my point is this: like, really honestly, the leadership at the port should be us. We shouldn't have to engage the leadership at the port. We should be the leadership at the port. Right, so, and that's different, right? So we shouldn't be down there having a debate with them. It's our land, right? And so when the governors appoint the commissioners, it shouldn't be non-white guys, right? Who don't live nowhere around here. There ought to be, right? Some diversity. And apparently somebody from cities should be there. So we shouldn't have to show up at the meeting. We should be holding the meeting. That's the difference that I have, and I've been engaging Phil Murphy about that, because I think he's going to be the governor. So I've been engaging him about that. Obviously, if you can do anything for us, we need a commissioner.
Hi, Mayor. My name is Denise Cole. I know you know me. The question I want to ask about sustainability.
can we begin, because we're going to begin to, matter of fact, we are transitioning into local control. And this is information that if we begin to train or educate our children in this, because I'm glad I came here, and I don't know how well it was advertised in the South Ward, but I know that I shared it with Yolanda at 7:30 this morning, and that's why she's here.
That's good.
And I found out about it by Kai Kettles, because he tagged me in it, and that's how I knew, so that's why I came. But the information that I gained here today is a wealth of knowledge and me thinking of education, how sustainability fits into the education model that we have. We have 5 community schools. I'm the vice president of the PTA at George Washington Carver. I'm thinking about how this can come into George Washington Carver, and from pre-K to 12, we get education and start to get our young children motivated about the jobs that's going to be here for the future, which is green jobs. So I wanted to ask you, how do we incorporate that into our 67 schools that we have here in Newark, into the different languages, so we can begin to help you from an educated point of view, because an educated consumer is your best consumer. And if we can begin to educate our children, they will educate their parents, and we can assist you in making the job easier for the future.
I absolutely agree with that. There's a few low-hanging fruit that we could absolutely do in some of these schools. Issues around litter, around garbage, around keeping area clean, and the green space stuff that we could talk about, air quality, all of these things that we can teach our kids and talk to them about. And go ahead, I'll let you.
Well, I'm going to recruit you into a committee, actually, is what's happening right now. There's a statewide entity called Sustainable Jersey that has a certification program for municipalities and for schools. And there's a small committee that's formed under the Newark Green Team, which is a coalition of environmental stakeholders that many folks here in the room are a part of, that's specifically looking into becoming certified under Sustainable Jersey for our schools to get through that program. And I think it would be amazing to have you as part of that conversation.
And that's one of our goals, is to create young people who are sustainability ambassadors for the city. So that fits right into that.
And I just want you to know that I go to the board meetings, and you know our 67 public schools are not recycling yet. So please help
we do know that.
Recycle, please,
we do know that,
because that's a part of
the
sustainability. Thank you.
Yeah. We're trying to get them to let us do it. But that's a bunch of building. You would be surprised how many people in the city are not recycling. Housing Authority, all these other kind of organizations, we got to get them better. They're getting better. And then individual households. We're trying to create incentives for people to begin recycling in the first place. Yeah. Yeah.
How much more time do you have? A couple more?
Yeah, maybe 2 more after that.
I'm a master gardener.
Oh, wonderful.
And I grow food. I was just wondering how, or if the city has a plan dedicated to urban agriculturalists who want to develop a sustainable method of local food system here.
No, we don't have a holistic plan or strategy, and we need to. So that's what we talked about in the East, because they have a beautiful garden down there. There's a couple that I can think of off the top of my head. One on Meeker Street, Custer, where they, gardens where they're growing food and vegetables. And so what happened is uneven kind of engagement. We engage some of the ones who obviously know how to navigate City Hall, and we help them. And there's some people who don't do that. So we have to try to create some kind of committee or organization or something that brings all of those folks to the table, and we create a kind of plan, a strategy of how we equally distribute resources and help them grow and expand at the same time.
That transition from administration to administration, so is
Right.
continuity for
Yeah. For the last couple months, I've been involved in some fundraising where we're actually hitting up for 4 goal areas, one of which is to create a food policy council, which is what some of the leader communities in urban agriculture across the country have. Santa Fe, New Mexico, Seattle, Washington, I can name a bunch of them that have that kind of entity in place. And if we're successful, you'll know in a couple weeks. Fingers crossed.
Yep. And yeah, that's important because we also want you to be able to use that and sell it in the local stores. Create opportunities for you to sell it. You sell it to our neighbors. All of those things are incredibly important, right? Before, last thing on that, the city used to have a grant for community stores and we would give them refrigeration. We pay for the refrigeration, and they would have to put produce in there. We lost that grant years ago because a lot of the stores had the refrigeration, and they were putting other stuff in there besides the produce. And then when you talk to them, they were basically saying, some of them just were doing crazy stuff, but a lot of folks were saying, look, we put the produce in there, but nobody purchased it. And a lot of these, and so we have to do a kind of a serious education or cultural kind of thing about why it's necessary. Now, nobody's going to the store to buy those bananas, to buy this, to buy that. They're getting cereal, milk, eggs, all of the basic stuff that's basically available on their WIC card or Family First or whatever they have money for at exorbitant prices. They buying canned goods, box of rice, cereal, milk, bread, cheese, eggs, and they skip the lettuce and egg and the bananas and all that other stuff. So we have to do a better job at making sure our parents are educated around good food choices.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
just to elaborate on what Denise and piggyback off of what Denise was saying, if we could just get some kind of internship for our students with the green program so that we won't have to hire outside resources to come in and cut our trees down. We can already have homegrown tree cutters that will till the land, as I like to say, or take care of the community that we live in.
Yeah.
How could that be established by the city?
The city has a tree department. We don't have a arborist or some kind of forester or something like that, but the folks in the tree department are not those people, right? And we have people in DPW who are responsible for that, and we had this discussion in another ward. These guys are not horticulturists. These guys, you tell them to clean a thing, they cutting the grass, trimming the hedges, that's it. I mean, they're not planting flowers, they're not doing all these other kind of things, and that's something that we need to begin to figure out how to begin to incorporate, and maybe we can train some kids in that area and expand the department. Right now, the tree department has about 2, maybe 3 people in it, and their job is to go around and deal with tree complaints, cut trees, trim them, deal with the sidewalk issues, all of that stuff.
So let me just be more specific. We have 5 community schools. Those 5 community schools, instead of the lead agencies looking for outside resources, we can bring the resources that we already have in the city, like you said, to train students so that they can hire within inside the city.
Oh, okay. No, I understand that. I didn't understand what you were saying before. Right. Yeah, so the schools who they obviously contract outside people to do after-school programming and do all that other stuff. I get it. And they could basically go to the people around here and get them to train kids, and yeah, that's good. Sure.
Right, for something.
Right, absolutely.
One more question.
Yeah, well, that's what that's what I was saying earlier, why inclusionary zoning is important. We have contracts in New Jersey Community Capital. We are getting properties at 100 at a time. 800 properties a year foreclosed in the city, right? So we have major foreclosures in the city, and the quicker we turn a property around, more property gets put out there. The city is not a property manager. We passed the ordinance for a land bank. The governor vetoed it. We have to go back and do it again. And hopefully we can get these properties managed in a way that we can begin to turn them over quicker and better in terms of the sales of the city. But we have a homesteading program that's coming up that we are going to allow Newark residents to get these properties for very cheap, to begin to develop them, send them through a home ownership program with the Urban League, and get them in those properties. The Inclusionary Zone Ordinance also addresses that. So we have a lot of tools that are in place that we're trying to address infill housing in the West Ward, some of the blight in the South Ward. Unfortunately, there are other areas in the city, whether you believe it or not, are a lot more blighted than the area you're talking about, the areas we're talking about. So we spend a lot of attention specifically on the area we call the number blocks in the West Ward, where there's basically almost one house per 3 blocks. And so we are focusing a lot of energy on that. We call it community development or place-based strategies. So over the last month, we have had a very aggressive plan to sell 100 and 150 of those homes in that area, or lots, to begin the development in that place. We don't have the resources to do that all over the city simultaneously, so that's going to happen there, and then we move where we can to get those things done. But there are areas that are a lot worse off than the areas up around the Clinton Hill that we have to address first. Yeah, he's the last one. I'm good, brother.
What do I need to do in reference to gaining information to obtain those properties?
Yeah. Well, I would, Annette Muhammad, down at City Hall, 4th floor, is a good person to talk to. She's the property manager for the city, and she can give you all the information you need. Also, on August 19th, we're at City Hall. We're having a citywide kind of men's gathering, and they're going to be talking about properties at that meeting as well, the availability of properties. So that's important.
Okay. I just want to make a quick statement. I lived in Atlanta. I lived in Lower California for 18 years. Berkeley sustainability is a huge conversation.
Sure.
Not just a conversation, it's a movement. I just like to say that what you're doing, what the city's doing, is a beautiful thing. And Newark is really seated in other places, you don't know. So, but I just want to let everyone know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.